Today, the ninth chapter, and the chapter is the pure existence. That is the heading of this chapter. If you say like that, you look at this whole world and you find that, let us imagine for the time being that man is not on the sea, or that man is, well, hidden somewhere and he looks at the whole cosmos as it is manifested. Then what will he find? He will find that there is a boundless energy at work, and something that exists is at work, an infinite existence and a boundless energy. That is what you find when you look at the cosmos, at the universe. And infinite movement is taking place, infinite activity in space, in time, eternally going on like that. That is what it is. And this existence which we see, this infinite, boundless existence and movement and activity, is far more than the human individual, human collectivity. Isn't it? This is very simple to take in. Take an individual, however great, that which you see is far greater. Take any human collectivity, the whole of human race. That energy and that activity and existence which works is infinitely more than man individually taken or collectively conceived or collectively operated. And then you find that perhaps this existence and this movement exists for its own sake. It has its own aim. You see, why should man think that it must have his aim imposed upon it? You see? So then its own aim, perhaps its own idea, its own purpose, its own direction. We don't know, but at least it can have an independent aim, independent of man's idea of what it should be or should not be. And this boundless movement does not very much give a great importance to man. He does not regard man as if he was, somebody to be looked up to. This boundless movement to this grand panorama of energy and being, man is not all important. Man is one item among many, and he is not as important as he perhaps wants to be. Because if you observe, you will see that when it works, it does not concern itself mainly with man. It does not say, oh, this very, yes. It is also busy with the design of a flower, with the working out of a plant, with a small insect, with the contour of the mountain, you see, with the flow of the river. As he puts it in Life Divine, it is equally concerned with the solar systems and the ant. It seems to care as much to put into motion correctly the solar system as to bring into existence an ant. There, man doesn't come in. There is no man in between. It doesn't seem to care as if it was only caring for man. So, if this is an independent movement in which you find, then man will say, yes, that is true, solar systems and anthill, but the solar system is great and is small. But that is only man's illusion of quantity, is it not? Man looks as if this is big, but solar system ant can climb a mountain. A sun cannot climb. So then you would say, oh, then ant is greater than, again, that is also another exaggeration of quality. It thinks that capacity to move is more important than giving brilliant light to several, planets in the world or in the earth. You see, that is also again. But if you observe, he says impersonally, you will see that the care that it bestows on the ant and the care it bestows on the sun is the same. It is not more here and less there. It is in fact equal, both in the ant as well as in the sun, in the small flower as well as in the great, great natural occurrence that you might see, is a tornado or a volcano or a the earthquake. The same. So that this one thing, but one has to grasp is that an equal pervasion of the whole. And then you say that when you say it is equal in the sun and equal in the ant or in the flower and in the mountain, what you mean to say that it is here in some portion, there in some portion, there in some portion? You say, no, that is not true. It is not divided. It is present as a whole in each. If it is not present as a whole in each, then the each cannot be even itself. So that it is not, it appears as if divided. Gita says, vibhaktam ivacha sthitam. Gita says like that. Avibhaktam vibhakteshu vibhaktam ivacha sthitam. It is something that is undivided, but appears as if divided. Yes, it appears, but it is not divided. It is equally present, and the whole of it is present in each. That is what one has to grasp, you see, that the whole is present in each. Each object, small or great, is the front of the whole of the Brahman, front of the whole of the infinite. That is really the definition of the infinite. Infinite is not unitarian unity, not that. But each object is a frontal aspect of the whole infinite. So that behind that small, insignificant aspect, form, and name that you see, the whole of it is standing. If the whole was not there, the each that you see, the object that you see, would not be seen or known as an object, or would not even exist as an object. That is the mystery, and that is the truth that one has to understand when we want to enter into the problem of man, his destiny on earth, and in what lies his fulfillment. Because unless you understand the total problem, you will lose your way. Here, don't give man the primacy which all thinking is trying to give. That is one. Don't put in man's idea of more or less or quantity and quality in the reading or in the conception or understanding of the purpose that seems to be at work in the cosmos, and the infinite energy and consciousness and being that is working out. It bestows the same anxiety or care in the smallest as well as the biggest thing. It equally exists in all. It is not distributed, it is indivisible, and though it is indivisible, appears as if it is divided. You can say the quantity and quality to our mind seems to differ. But the self that is behind the quality and the quantity is the same. To the mind or to the human consciousness, quantity and quality, name and form seem to differ. Yes, more or less, or good or bad, or form or formlessness, and so on. But the self that is at work is the same. Well, that establishes one thing. Now, what is the relation between this great infinite being and energy at work and this great movement and ourselves, the human being? Then you see the difference in the centricity of observation or centricity of perfection. To man, he is all important. And this energy is secondary. To man's view, he is the center of this movement, is it not? Now look at this. Look, to man, this he appears to be, he acts as if, thinks as if, behaves as if he is in the center. He becomes the center, and ego tries to become equal to all. He behaves as if it was the all. He is all, like that he behaves. And this establishes a sort of mental self sufficiency, that I am all and I am important, I am central to the universe, and so on. And this begins a false account of understanding of the universe. You see, the very account that you make up is false, therefore. Man is not in the center. So, what he has to do is to find out the aim of that which is working, the infinite being and existence and energy and movement. Instead of that, he establishes or tries to establish himself in the center. Instead of knowing that he is a partial movement of an infinite movement, he thinks he is a central movement of the whole infinite. Yes. Well, when he begins to know that he is a partial movement of an infinite movement, then the true perception begins. Then you say now he can know some truth. So long as he trying to dominate the whole cosmic existence and activity, well, there is a false account at work. When he begins, you see, to understand that whole of humanity and individual human being is only a partial movement of the whole, well, then there is a beginning of true life. And then you can say that he can become one with the all. Then, with that all which he knows as the real movement, he can become one with that. He can't become central and make the all zero in his ego, but he can expand his ego into the all. This is possible for man. And then he will see that this movement is not independent. Means it is not as it were, it has no stable ground. As individual here and collective human being is subordinate to the total infinite existence and activity, this total existence and activity is subordinate to one that is at the bottom. The individual, humanity and individual, here human being and human collectivity, is subordinate to this vast infinite movement and activity. That activity and that existence is subordinate to one constant, unchanging, immutable being, a self. So that is secondary to a stable, infinite being. Man is secondary to this infinite movement of existence and consciousness. You see, it is a double thing to be understood. Yes. Is subordinate to one timeless, spaceless, immutable. And this that you see is timeless and spaceless, philosophers say, some of them, that is pure existence. In it, there is no movement, there is no energy, no manifestation, no creation, no world. Remember, that is where it comes. Yes, there is a self, timeless, spaceless, stable, immutable. And pure existence. And there is all stability. Now, when you say stability, really speaking, that stability is only sometimes a block of movement. You don't know. You call it stable because the whole is a block of movement. When you see a wheel of a cycle moving very fast, it will appear as if it's stable. No? It will appear as if you are only seeing it not moving at all. But it is moving at an enormous pace, therefore speed, therefore you don't notice. But it is one. Well, the stability and immutability which you see in the pure existence is perhaps the block of a movement. It is a vast, you see, fast movement, therefore you fix it up and you say, oh, pure existence is immutable, stable, unmoving, timeless, spaceless. You may say that energy there seems to be at rest. If you want to conceive the pure existence in which you don't notice any energy, it may be that energy is there, but energy is at rest. It is quite open to energy to be at rest. Energy is not always bound to be active. Isn't it? If you take a mountain and on it you put a reservoir of water, Now it is not flowing all the time, but it can flow. Is it not? An energy is water on the height of 1,000 feet is energy. It is energy, but it's not active. It can be made active, of course, and it can exert enormous pressure. Enormous power can be released, but energy seems to be as if it is inactive, so that it is possible for energy to be at rest, for energy to be active. In the pure existence, the energy or existent, the energy may be present, but withdrawn from activity, in repose. That is a possibility. For instance, when your train is moving, you feel that the landscape is moving, is it not? You see, you are at standstill and everything else is moving. Then then the question arises whether this existence is only movement. Can you say that all existence means all the time movement? Yeah. Action of energy. Can say existence is, in one way of putting it is, existence is infinite, infinite regard to time and space. When existence put forth energy, when existence energizes, activates itself, then you feel infinite time and infinite space. Because time and space itself require movement for their existence even. Perception is apart, but for the existence. So that when the pure existence puts forth into movement, activity, then time and space come into existence. Then time and space. Because if you say that existence is pure existence in which no movement takes place, then in that existence you cannot locate time and space. And when we say space, we do not mean this spatial extension or expansion. Space is only self-expansion, psychological. In the pure existence, space, as we notice, spatial expansion, or wideness of direction, that is not space. Space in the pure existent is psychological self-expansion. It is brihat, widening of itself, that's all. Not widening of the space. This is a secondary result of its self-expansion in consciousness, self-expansion of being. When being resorts to the process of self-expansion, then that self-expansion or self-extension is felt as space in mind, in life, and so on. That is space. You see, it is the self-extension of the Brahman. Then you see the whole, then you feel space. Or when there is a movement in the self-existence, pure existence, then that is felt as time. Time is not duration between events. Time is not merely, what we notice as the passage of certain hours, you see. Time is really movement of consciousness of the self-existent. When it moves, time is created. In fact, if you watch very carefully, you will see that there is no really, objective time, even in our life. There is no time as a fixed something. We say time and space are necessary for mind to perceive events and world and so on. That is one way of putting it. But there is no fixed time and fixed space. You see, space is capable of expansion or extension or elastic movement. So is time. Time is not nothing that nothing objective. You cannot fix time outside yourself. It, if you want to know what is time, you will only say what is movement, action, process. That is time. Time is a process. Is the name we give to perception of a process, growth, action, activity, change. That's time. If no change took place, we will not notice time. If things remain absolutely as they are without any change, well, you won't perceive time. So time is another name we give for change, for growth, for a process. You take a seed, put it in the ground, then it becomes a virgins out and becomes a small seedlings and a plant and then well, that process, that is called time. Time is the name for the process. And that is not fixed. It is not as it were time was compelled to be so much time. There is no such so much time, you see. In the change, it may be sudden change or slow change. In the growth, it may be immediate growth or growth extended out in long process. That's all. And this is very variable. You see, time can be time is very often surpassed by men, overpassed by men. When, for instance, a man is faced with an ideal which he considers the highest thing, then for him, you see, the values of time and space become quite different. You see, for him, then, if you say, oh, if that man lives for 100 years, he would be able to do. No, he is ready to risk his life immediately for that purpose. Immediately, there is no question of time with him in that case. Time is only the name for action, change, growth, process. You take 1 cubic centimeter of water and raise it to the boiling point. Now a scientist will say, how much time it will take? Then he can say, it will take 5 or 7 minutes to rise to the boiling point. Now therefore 7 minutes is the time required for raising water from liquid state to the steam or turning it into the boiling point. But if you can change the conditions in which it is boiled, well, the time will change. If you reduce the pressure or increase the heat, then naturally time will not be the same. Time will be compressed, is it not? Yes, time can be made elastic and can be made compressed. You can compress time into it. Now, when the higher consciousness works, it so changes all circumstances and conditions, psychological and physical, that time can be reduced to zero, instantaneous. That is what you call the operation of the omnipotence. It operates and brings about and compresses the whole process in an instant. Well, then you say, oh, it is miracle. But it's only compression of all the necessary elements into an instant of time or automatic, immediate. You call it immediate, you see. If you could bring all the pressure of fire and reduce the pressure to zero, water would boil instantaneously, immediately. It wouldn't take 1 second. All will go away like that in the air, finished. Where is time? Time is gone. We were noticing that time is only a process, change. If consciousness did not change from one point to another, we will not notice time. If events did not take place, if movement did not take place, if action did not take place, if our senses did not perceive the changes outside, we will not perceive time. If things remain absolutely as they are, there is no time. So that we are just thinking of this process here. Duration or time is only psychological and not temporal. Yes. Existence itself, then you can say there is no time and space in the pure existence, and then how is this action and movement to be explained? How will you explain this movement if you put in the pure existence of the infinite a negation of activity, a negation of movement? So he puts in this chapter that you say instead of pure existence something, because you have defined pure existence in a particular way. But beyond pure existence, you say it is something, an acts. And in that something, if you say it is at repose and non-moving, inactive, immobile, immutable, spaceless, timeless, then you say that it holds the potentiality of action. It holds all the energy in repose. Just as, the reservoir of water on the top of a mountain holds all the energy in potential form and can be rendered active at any time by providing suitable process and material circumstances. Well, in the same way, the pure existent holds or carries in it all the potentialities of repose, energy in action, energy in repose. When you say energy in action, you almost understand by implication that energy can be in repose. It can be active, it can be non-active. And then he puts it in one beautiful sentence. Absolute energy not in action is simply absolute existence. Absolute energy not in action is absolute being, absolute existence. Because if you simply say that the purpose of all this is negation of all activity and rise again into a void of activity, then it means the whole purpose of this movement, which we notice in the beginning, becomes void. There seems to be no. It's a staircase in which infinite energy seems to be working, and you come at the end to a void because there is nothing else. There is an absolute non-existence almost, or a want of fulfillment at the end of the process of existence.
Excuse me, Purani. Is non-existence and absolute existence? Non-existence seems to be more to the point, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Absolute non-existence rather than absolute existence.
We see, absolute non-existence itself would be contradiction in terms. You see, because yes, that's it. With a non-existence which is negative, you cannot put in a positive term like the absolute. It would be difficult to make it compatible with the constitution of mind, because mind requires certain categories along it can think. If you say it is positive and affirmative, when in the affirmative you cannot admit anything negative, you see. So that non-existence would be only negative. I mean, negation of existence. Now to it, how can you add absoluteness? You see, is now this pure existence. When you say and pure existence is absolute, if you want to say, you can say yes. He says you can admit it as absolute, but then it is not in the sense that there are no forms, there are no qualities, no quantities, but you can say that it is over and above, more than, or it exceeds or goes beyond all quality, all name, all form, all object. That way you can say it is absolute. Absolute in the sense of exceeding all that is relative. That is the true conception, he said. It is identity indifference, you see. And really speaking, he says that all this which we put in our mind, when from our own mind, a mentally conceived truth, and what we see, not the same. What we see is an X. What we mentally conceive is the knowledge of the conception in our own mind, not what we see. What we see creates in the mind a perception, and what we perceive is our perception. We do not perceive what is there. What happens here is due to what is there, of course. There is something there. It's not that there is nothing and we perceive something. No, there is something, an X. But it is not what we perceive. What we perceive is what we perceive only. And the perception in our mind is due to an object outside, some X, which is really speaking unknown in its own sense. That is what Kant said. You see, knowledge perceive. Knowledge of the object in itself, thing in itself, is not the knowledge that the mind gets, because what mind gets is the reaction of that on the mind or on the sense or on some part of human psychology, so that it is not as if one knew what it was. Therefore, what is the eternal. That is what the mind has to make itself understood or make itself understand that it is not movement, it is not progress, it is not present, past, and future. What is the eternal. Now, how what is the eternal? This is the existential stand in one way. Modern school of existentialism also wants to say that why do you want to carry the past here and know the future here? The present moment is all. And what comes to you in the present, well, that is the expression of the infinite and eternal in you. This is the existential stand in philosophical way. The existentialists philosophically want to say this thing. Their application may be wrong. You see, they say therefore that don't bother about what you have to attain. What you have to attain, you are attaining now, which is not quite the way of putting it, but that's how they put it. You see, as the eternal alone is, and whatever is the eternal. Therefore, what you have to attain? Well, what you are attaining now. Now that they forget that it is not an isolated movement. It's a continuous process of, unfoldment. It is not as if it was not connected with the past or it is not connect or going to be connected with the future. What is the eternal, yes. But the eternal means past, present, and future. And in that case, what is carries in it all the past. What one is today is the result of all his past evolution, social forces, all the forces, individual forces, family, everything now. That's one. Past is not dead. Past is actually standing in the present. And it is also tending towards the future. It is not as it were, it says now I come to a dead stop and full point and up, present. No. You see, yes, that's it. That is where the existentialists go wrong when they say that what is there is happening to you now. A process is happening to you now. And in that process, what you have to see is whether it's an upward curve or the downward curve. And there you have a decisive voice. It is not as it were the eternal, whatever is eternal, yes, is the eternal now. But the eternal is not standing still. Eternal is a movement. And so far as the individual is concerned, if he says, I am the eternal in present time, then for himself he has to see whether the curve of the eternal in me is tending upward or downward. If he says whatever happens is the action of the eternal, then it means either fatality or fixed future, or what they say. There is a word, philosophical term for it. It is it is it is all arranged from beforehand. You see, yes, fatalism in a way. Predetermination. Yes. It's a predetermined thing. Everything is predetermined, and whatever the eternal is it will go on manifesting every minute. So then it is predetermined what it will manifest. Now therein comes the subtle question of Sri Aurobindo, where he says that it is true and it is not true. Both. It is true in the higher sense that it is predetermined, the unrollment and unfoldment. But it is not true in the individual human sense, because man lives in time and not in eternity. Man lives in time. The unfoldment is in and from the eternal. So the eternal unfoldment has a predetermination, if you like, yes. But how is a human being who is not conscious of the eternal to know what is predetermined? In the determination of his own, he has to find out what is predetermined, and therein consists his responsibility. He has to find out what is predetermined by a supreme will or by an infinite being, an infinite consciousness, an infinite power. So to say that what is the eternal, and therefore don't seek. That is a great relief which this existentialists want to afford the present. When why do you worry? Relieve yourself of all pressure of finding out purpose of life, aim of life, fulfillment of life, ideal, goal. All that is nonsense and troubling yourself. It is actually working in you. Now, man is not one simple entity that it can work only in one way. If man says whatever is eternal, and in me whatever is working now and here, well, it might be taking you to the animal level all the time. Man has in him impulses common to the animal. Man and his emotions and movements very ordinary and ignorant. Man has him mind, which can discriminate, which can understand, which can reason out, which can come to truth. What is the use of giving these faculties to the human organism if he was intended only to all the time act as if, well, the eternal was all, is every time, and, well, eternal is acting. But then the eternal has to act through your mind, through your judgment, through your reasoning, through your intuition, through your emotion, through your vital being, through your perception of what is truth and what is not truth. If you don't bring those to bear upon the present movement, it is nonsense to say that, well, what in one moment he is angry, at third moment he is sorrowful, fourth moment he is at the height of sacrifice, fifth moment he is in philosophical mood. It makes no sense. Whatever is eternal. Therefore, don't worry about ideal. Don't bother about finding out what you have to do. You live for the present. This is existential stand, I tell you. There is nothing more than that. That's all. Values are unimportant. Existence is important. That's what they want to tell you. This is all they want to say. Why do you want to say good, bad, high, low, true, false? All that is projection from your mind. Existence, you exist and you feel, I must. Well, that is the truth. Now they forget that in this existential push, there is a drive for value. How can you say that only exist is the drive of being in man, at least? In man, that is not the drive. He doesn't want to exist in any way. If his truth is at stake, he wants to die. So, if what he believes to be right or just or true, he is ready not to exist. You see, because for him that existence is greater than his personal existence. Existence is important. Values have no relevance to human existence or should not have. That is their pressure. And therefore, live. Go on living, and your present life is the fulfillment of the eternal in you. It's not true. It is only partial way of putting that there is a process at work. Process of the eternal, and you must, as a conscious human being, be able to perceive the process and see whether you are taking an upward curve, a downward curve, or a horizontal curve. You are responsible. You can participate in the process of existence. You are not only mechanically subjected to like a machine and the existence is going on operating mechanically. What was the use of producing a conscious being if the whole process was mechanical? Was so predetermined that you have no choice in determining the future. It's nonsense. It makes no sense. The tendency or the tension of forces or lines of forces is also towards the future. It's not as if present was only at every time a full point and then it was recreated every minute like that. You see, present, present, present like that. No, there is a push from the past towards the future. And there is also a tension from the future drawing the present. You will see that. It is not as it were, oh, you see, it is here every time, every second the decision comes fresh. No, every second the decision is connected with the past. And also is directed towards the future. And the future has tentacles thrown into the present. The present is not devoid of will come. It is all the time present. The present is therefore a component of all past, present, and future tendencies. And therefore, to say that you confine yourself to the is or to the present is a very partial way of putting the problem. It's an indivisible succession of time, carrying in it the progressive movement of consciousness. There is therefore, when you say eternal, it is the indivisible succession. You can't divide past, present, yes, indivisible succession of time carrying in it progressive movement of a consciousness or of the consciousness which is indivisible. One consciousness. Then you can say what you live, you are fulfilled in the present moment. Yes. Existentialists would be right if they lived in the infinite consciousness and said, we are fulfilled. Yes, you will be fulfilled every minute if you live in the infinite consciousness naturally. Because you will be fulfilling that purpose of the indivisible movement of the infinite being. Certainly. You know first what you are, and you know what acts in you and why. Well, then there is no problem. It's all right, quite fulfillment. But till that is realized, that is when the human being realizes that he is one with that infinite movement of consciousness, progressive movement of consciousness which is indivisible, he cannot say that he is living in the present which is eternal. You see? And then you will see that becoming is the only being that man can perceive. Becoming and being are indivisible. Infinite being is eternal becoming. Being and becoming are indivisible. You cannot divide the two. And it's one reality. And as he puts it, man or the whole flow of life is like a river, like a flame that is constantly burning. You cannot say that I want to divide the existence of the river from its flow. River and its flow have existence and flow. The flame and its burning. No, you can't. The two, like that, you see, go together always. If you say, what is becoming? Well, a mode of being. What is being? Basis of becoming. This is a mental way of putting it, that's all. But it's another way of saying that they are indivisible. Pure existence is a fundamental reality. And pure existence and world existence are both facts of being. Pure existence and world existence. Because world existence is a becoming of the pure existence. You see? It is unfoldment, it is the unrolling, it is the river. And then existence and reverse existence and flow. How can you divide? It is I one. Being is there, movement is there. Yes, it is not. The fact of being and a fact of becoming are one. And then he puts it very finely in an image. This is a quotation which is very fine. World existence is the ecstatic dance of Shiva, which multiplies the body of the god numberlessly to the view. It leaves the white existence precisely where and what it was, ever is, and ever will be. Its sole object is joy of dancing. There you find Shiva and Kali one. You see, the timeless, spaceless, pure existence and measureless movement in time. Timeless, spaceless, pure existence and measureless movement in time are one. And then we say that there is a force that seems to be at work. Who brings about this movement, measureless movement, energy, force? And then the question is whether this force is inconscient or conscient. A pure existent in which movement is implied and ever present and indivisible. Now, this movement is due to energy or force. Is this force or energy of pure existence conscious or unconscious? Well, that problem we will take up next time. Means in the next chapter. Is it a conscious power at work or an unconscious power at work? And in this chapter that we take up, in the 10th chapter, he takes up the problem of whether the force is conscious or not. The force at work in the cosmos, in the pure existence, which is indivisible from being and becoming being one. All phenomenal existence that you see resolves itself ultimately into force. You see a stone, but then a scientist says stone means atomic force, some power which is chemically or physically present there. You see a tree, then you say biological process, force of life, isn't it? You see an animal, when you say life force working in the organism. But all phenomenal existence is, he says, resolvable into force. Force is a movement of energy. Some energy is working. Now, therefore, the question will be whether you take any material form or subtle form. Your question is whether the energy is conscious or unconscious. The energy at work in the cosmos, whether it is conscious energy or unconscious energy. A vast sea of energy is there. And then there is numberless movements in that energy taking place. That is how the whole world will present itself when you take your stand away from mere being into movement. Then you see that all is force, all is movement of energy. And a vast ocean of energy, all kinds of energies, life energy, material energy, electrical energy, heat energy, but ultimately reduced to one energy perhaps. And then the question is whether that one energy to which you reduce all energy is conscious energy or unconscious. Is it a mechanical in its operation or capable of an entity or a consciousness? Our first perception of this force that we see is matter. That's where we see it first. We see, oh, the force is all matter. And the scientists will say that if you study matter, you will reduce it to energy. Ultimately, now in the present setup of science, we say electrical energy, is it not? All is atoms and molecules. And atoms and molecules are reducible to electrons. And electrons are now further divisible into 26 small infinitesimal particles. I am giving you now the latest development of science. From electron, they have come to 27 particles, photon and cyclotron and all kinds of negative particles, positive particles, and so on. 26 infinitesimal particles, but all electrical in their nature. So you find matter, and matter reducible to electrical energy. So what is all this? A vast sea of electrical energy. We are living in a sea of electricity, surrounded by only electrical force. Somehow we don't get a shock. But that is because God is kind enough or nature is good enough. Otherwise, we should die of a tremendous shock living in the world of energy. But that's what science tells us now. I'm not talking of poetry or philosophy, not at all. I'm talking of what the scientists tell us is a fact. Well, it's electricity, and it so manages that it becomes neutral, it becomes good, it becomes helpful, it helps man, it helps animal, it helps life. Therefore, because we see that force in matter, why we see first this energy as matter? Because our mind also is molded by matter. The first thing why we perceive that, oh, this is, where is the force? Where is the force? We say matter immediately. But why we turn immediately to matter? Because our very mind is mold of matter, you see. So it first goes to its own origin, you see, to matter, in contact with matter, material force. And when you say material force, an Indian way of looking at this problem was that you see, force means here vibration only. They will say force is vibration of energy. And this vibration of energy, in Indian parlance or Indian way of scientific way or objective way of looking, they said that, well, it is akash, ether, a subtle medium in which the force manifests first. Subtle medium called ether. In the ether, when there is vibration, then of course the creation starts, materially speaking, they will say. Then of course the creation starts, materially speaking, they will say. Now, vibration does not create forms, pure vibration only. There must be a interplay of vibration to create solidity. interplay of vibrations. You see, expansion, contraction, vibration that expands, vibration that contracts, then that might give rise to solidity. Otherwise, to create solidity out of mere energy would not be easily possible if it was only vibration. So, in vibration, you bring about contraction and expansion, interplay of vibration, if you like to call it, and then contact comes into being, and it is a contact which the name in Sanskrit is touch, and of its elemental form is called water. Liquidity, not water in the sense of water as we see it, but liquidity of state, flow, capacity to flow. When that is there, then contact is established. And then comes light which sustains all relations. Light in the form of, well, fire, or light in the form of electricity, or any form of fire. All these ether, conduction of sound, light, solidity, and liquidity of state. These are elemental states of matter, really speaking. They are not matter yet. Elemental states from which what we perceive as matter comes. Vibration taking place, contraction and expansion taking place, vibration of light coming into being. Well, all that creates the elemental states of matter from which our perception of this material world is created. You see, the element of Prithvi's cohesion, solidity. These elemental states of matter build up all matter that we know. Vibrations below of an energy, electrical in its nature, creates all these. And this vibration we know as contact, touch, sight, heat, taste, light, smell. Yes, we perceive this earthly element, material element. Earth means matter. Please remember, in Indian parlance, when you say earth, means matter. Matter we perceive by its vibrations. And these vibrations come to our constituted material being, nerves, in 4 or 5 forms, so that we perceive it as contact, touch of something, smell of something, taste of something, sight of something. See, well, that hearing means contact of vibration at a distance. What do we perceive? Vibrations. Vibration of an energy. Vibration of an energy only. When we perceive a bird or a fruit or a tree or a stone, we are perceiving only vibration of an energy. Remember that fundamental fact with which you started the chapter, you see. And then what is consciousness? Is it an operation of vibration of energy on another vibration of energy? Inconscient mechanical energy producing inconscient mechanical vibration on another energy. Man is one energy, object is another vibration of energy. The two vibrations come in contact in 5 ways: touch, taste, sight, smell, contact, and so on, hearing, isn't it? So that this coming together of apparently two or divided being, is it one inconscient energy to another inconscient energy? There is no cognition or consciousness. Here, at one point of reception, there is consciousness, isn't it? The object is not conscious. The one who perceives the object is conscious. The vibration has taken place strictly now, up to now, only according to energy. There is energy here, energy there. 2 points of energy come in contact. And when they come in contact either by sight or by sound or by taste or by any other process or hearing, two energies collide or contact with each other, and suddenly there is a perception of consciousness. I perceive. Now, is this the result of mere vibrations? Is this the result of, the two energies colliding? Why does it not do it here if it is so? It does not take place between inanimate objects. So, when an animate object is brought into the vibration of consciousness as constituted in living beings is brought in contact with the vibration of what appears to be inconscient matter or object, then some change takes place. And then the question arises, what is consciousness? Up till now, well, this does not solve the theory, the problem at all. Mm, You say sensation take place. Quite right. In a machine, the sensation takes place, is it not? In a machine, a sensation takes place. In man also sensation takes place. Why in man it is conscious? You have a magnetic needle or you have an electrical apparatus in which immediately any change in electricity is noted. You have a thermometer which reacts. So it, in one sense, there is a reaction. But why in man is a conscious sensation? The sensation is accompanied by an act of acceptance and judgment at the same time. I perceive, that is one, and this is good. Quite two different things, isn't it? It's not merely something shaking here and another shaking there. Yes, one shaking has taken place, another shaking has taken place here. In a machine also the same thing takes place without any cognition, without any sensation, which is conscious. There is only a sensation which is not conscious. And in the conscious process, two things are involved. First, acceptance of the vibration, awareness of it, if you like to call it. And secondly, a return of judgment. The impulse goes to the brain, and from the brain travels back to the point of contact with a decision or a judgment saying yes, no, good, bad, desirable, pleasant, unpleasant, any number of decisions. And every second, mind that, these decisions are not, automatic almost. Why this conscious reaction? What is this consciousness? You see, this is the problem. Why there is a conscious sensation of these vibrations? The Sankhya's try to give an explanation by saying it is non-material principle they had to introduce, principle of buddhi or intelligence, principle of mahat and ahankar, and they will say that these are inactive, and they had to add a purusha. The Sankhya's had to say that chit, buddhi, mahat, ahankar, four elements which are not material but unconscious. Then how sensation becomes conscious? They will say because there is Purusha, a subjective being, a subjective element, a cognizing consciousness, which is independent of the vibration. The Sankhyas are the most nearest school of philosophy in India to the scientist in the West, you see, because it is they who first for the first time posited 24 elements, earth and air and ether and sound and so on, and posited Prithvi, Tej, Vayu, Akash and 24 elements which are all inanimate according to them. The animation and vibration of consciousness, according to them, comes from a subjective being, Purusha, the cognizing self, you can say, an element of independence from this inconscient world. One original force playing triply, one reflected in this conscious soul, and because this conscious soul has got a power of throwing out the light of its consciousness on the world, and the world appears to be living. That is the Sankhya explanation. Buddhi is also inconscient, but because Purusha throws its light, Buddhi appears to be conscient. More nature of the cosmos is a movement of force, and therefore two questions arise. First, how did this movement come into being at all? One. What is the cause of this movement? How did this come at all into movement, this vibration? Then we have already given the answer that force is inherent in existence. In this chapter, which we did on the 8th chapter and the 9th chapter, particularly in the 7th and 8th, the position was examined that existence cannot be without force, energy, power. Force is inherent in existence. And we talked last time that Shiva and Kali, Brahman and Shakti, are indivisible and one. And force has this double aspect of potentiality and activity, rest and movement. Force has a double aspect of passivity and activity, rest and movement, repose and activity. And can say that this movement is in rest and in eternal recurrence. Why should this force translate itself into movement? Why does it not remain concentrated and confined in its state of inactivity, of pure existence? If you say existence is non-conscious, well, then of course you have to take for granted that all is inconscient. Somehow the movement in the energy or vibration took place, that's all. You cannot explain. There is no explanation for why the vibration has taken place or how it came at all into being. But this force of existence does not seem to be working as if it was, an inconscient force. And the way to perceive that this force, this vibration, this infinite ocean of energy is the power of pure existence and infinite existence, and it must be conscious because this force works in the form of rhythm. It does not work pell-mell. It does not seem to work, well, anyhow. It throws itself into some rhythm, some sort of set rhythm of movement, a harmony of vibrations at one, another harmony, third harmony, fourth harmony, which supposes that there must be therefore consciousness at work. Why should it be only certain rhythms? If the force is really unconscious, why in material object it should be only electrical and material? Why in life it should be vital and nervous? Why in mind it should be mental? Isn't it? If the movement of force is only inconscient, why should this energy cast itself into rhythms of force or rhythms of vibration? A rhythm in which you perceive and you are made to admit the possibility or the presence of consciousness. Something is there which determines the rhythm. Otherwise, why should the rhythm become material at one point, living at another point? This multiplicity of rhythms and their set formations gives us a clue that it must be conscious. It cannot be unconscious movement or vibration only at work in a material medium. Well, and if it is supposing it is non-conscious, then you can say question does not arise, and then you will say, please don't ask why. Because for matter there is no why. It is, and take it or leave it, is it not? So existence or force are then inert. And then that is not conscious, therefore inert. Then we have to admit we don't live. We are automatons. Yes. Well, isn't it? Take the other alternative, then immediately you find that then don't ask why. Because the why doesn't exist, why it is irrelevant. There is no why because it is unconsciousness. So how can there be why in an unconsciousness? In fact, your questioning why is putting the question from the inconscient. It is meaningless. Therefore, well, either don't put the question at all. Force is inert and cannot have any purpose. An inert force cannot have a goal, cause, or intention. But if we suppose that existence as conscious is conscious being, then we ask, why? Why this movement? Why not another movement? You see? And then you ask that existence is conscious being, then it has the freedom to manifest or not to manifest. Why did the Purush chose to manifest? If it is conscious, yes, then the question will come. The why of it, the cause of it, the purpose of it, the intention of it, and the how of it even, you can say. You see? Well, Purusha must be free to manifest and do not to manifest. The being, conscious being, must be free to manifest and not to manifest. But the potentiality of movement is there in him, because existence is force, either at rest or in movement. This you would then to take for granted. You see that existence is conscious force, either at rest or in movement. And what is the relation of force and consciousness and this mental consciousness? That we take up tomorrow. You see, we'll come to the 10th chapter, more than half of it, I think, so that we go a little faster. Otherwise, life divine, we cannot even touch if you don't go a little fast. That's not possible. 1 year and 8 months I have read every day 1 hour. 1 year and 8 months full. I went with 6 students at Pondicherry. Dr. Masalawala, his wife, his daughter, and a fourth gentleman. Four. There were two more who used to come now and then. Was that an old Parsi doctor in Golkon? Masalawala, yes, he and his daughter and his wife. And there were two more people. 1 year and 8 months we took, every day 1 hour. So it is a job.
Absorbed. The sort of the comment on the times that there are all these philosophies seem to emphasize sort of an irresponsible note. Like it
Yes, but that is due to the disturbance or the whole upsetting of values which came after the two world wars.
Yeah.
You see, and it is necessary condition through which consciousness of man has to pass. Till the new values are established, well, this condition of unrest and unsettlement and so on will last. There are no values in cultural life today. There are no values in poetry, in art, in everything. You find everything is topsy-turvy. And it is a condition in which a psychological great disturbance has already taken place, because European Western culture was going along with a certain settled idea of values of life. And they thought they were final, top values, highest, and there could not be anything better. It is the discovery that there was something fundamentally wrong. Though there was many great and good things also, but there was basically something wrong. That discovery has disillusioned the Western mind with regard to their set values now. And now the new values they can't come to, because contact with the spiritual basis is lost. So they had only contact with material progress, social evolution, collective life, power, economics, science, industry, and so they want to seek how to adjust. They say, why bother? Live for the present. It's all right. What happens, happens. It doesn't matter. Because they saw actually, and this existentialism itself is a result of the last war, I tell you. Who is the first man who started? Sartre. He's a Frenchman. He was imprisoned in the Second World War in the German concentration camp. That's all. So that reaction, that what these people have not got the impersonality of this Indian mind, which any ordinary Tom, Dick, and Harry in India has got.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, these people, he became suddenly a man who said, oh, then what is the use of values? You as French people, you as Europeans, you do not know what you have done to the Africans and the Asians. How many people you have put to concentration camp in the same way that the Germans put you? It is only when the Germans put you that you understand what happens to somebody else. Isn't it? You should have known it before. That's what we were trying to point out. You didn't see because you thought we were slaves. Indians pointed out in 1912, Sir Brajendranath Sheel, the Vice Chancellor of Calcutta and Mysore University, was President of the World Peace Conference. World Peace Conference was held in 1912, and he sounded a note of warning that, gentlemen, this is a culture which you have created in which nations are being turned into armed camps. These are the words he used. And please take care that you are, heading for a conflagration. Who will listen? It is only when actually the catastrophe came and peaceful citizens and old people and cities and children were murdered and killed, then they understood the enormity of what they had been doing all along. Then they discovered. And now out of that he wants to make out a philosophy. What philosophy? You have subjected so many. Is what happened to you is nothing to what you have done to people for 150 years. You should have behaved better and understood better before. It's no use trying to make out now a philosophy that nothing exists, no values are there. What is the meaning of saying all that? Their idea was that we did not, bring about this war. And when things actually happen, the individual is nothing. In one sense, it is true. But the individual bears his own share. It was open to them to resist. I don't for a moment believe that Nazism was the creed of all Germans. I refuse to believe it. Not more than 10 or 15% of the people were Nazis in Germany. But the rest of them, why did they not make themselves felt? They should have risen on the strength of their conscience and resisted. That would have been the real movement to bring into existence better values or preserve old values. You see, when you did not do it, you have to bear the share of what the conflagration when it came. In France, there were many people. In Italy, I know there are many people who are not fascists at all. Hardly 10%. But the 90% dare not open their mouth. I know from Italian friends of mine who were there just 1 year before the war. They said, when we talk about the political situation, my friend will go and close the door. We said, I don't want anybody else to hear what we are talking. That was their situation. Even the servants were asked to get out. Means to be and close the door, then you talk. Well, that is the situation in which this conflagration was worked. So the masses were not necessarily responsible for what happened. I won't for the moment believe that every European was therefore bad or he did not know what he should do. There was a conscience, but there was no living on the conscience, acting on the conscience, making it a first priority of life. Then that would have been something. Now, after this or upsetting of values of spiritual life, morality, ethics, aesthetics, idealism, all is gone. And now they say somehow or other how to preserve the values of life. This is a problem of many thinkers. In England, in 55, when I was there, the best of them told me actually that we don't know how to get about this problem.
Is organization imperative? Organized effort in order to make itself felt.
In one sense, organized effort, or more than organized effort, is the awakening of the individual consciousness. Of course, that is the first important. And if there is an individual, or if there are individuals who stand up to the inmost values, then a collectivity will be formed ultimately. There is no other way of doing it.
I wanted to ask you too, is this disturbance, could it be called the churning of the ocean, or is the churning of the ocean started by the divine? Is there a difference?
Well, if I say, people will not accept what I say, but I will say now that we are a small company. It is because the pressure of the higher consciousness is there. I say because of the whole pressure of the descent of this truth consciousness, the supermind descending, has brought about a tremendous pressure on the world situation, and then those forces that were against it were thrown into trying their best to take the last chance, so to say, and they did. And the supermind also acted, with the result that now you have got hello hello. Oh, you have made it out from Los Angeles, is it? Yes, I make it out. So that you see, the whole was due to the pressure of the higher consciousness trying to manifest something of itself here now in the world situation. But as there was a hostile movement or an anti divine element in the world on a collective scale, working through some of the best elements of European culture. European culture is not to blame, but powers that took hold of the current of European culture and wanted to utilize it for an enormous vital, holding of the world by vital ambition and possessing the world, so to say, with the means of science given to it, was distinctly anti-divine. And it is that which threw the whole thing into conflagration. And ultimately, the powers of vital opposition were defeated, and by a distinct help of the divine. I mean, through a human agency of Sherwindo, you see. And when they underwent a defeat, they tried their best again to try to see if they can come back. They have not been able to make a comeback yet. And so the atmosphere is slowly settling down. And the most important sign of it is that the UNO is giving more importance to ethical values than to political and military, strategic, and economic values. In settlement of national disputes, it is not military force and economic power that counts, or the numbers and the strength, but whether the ethical values have been considered by the nation or by the people with whom the international organization has to deal. So ethics has begun to count as a factor in settlement of international disputes and conflicts. This is a great advance and a sign of the pressure that is working upon the atmosphere of humanity to make it ready for possible new age, perhaps 50 years, 100 years after. I don't say tomorrow. For us, it is already come 40 years back. But that doesn't mean that people who get up early morning know the dawn. But people who don't get up will notice when the sun has risen. So they will have to wait till the sun rises. But it has already come down, it has already made itself felt, and has been trying to make itself a permanent element of earth life or earth consciousness. This is the problem. Problem is not I, he or you. Problem is earth consciousness and putting into earth consciousness a new element of higher life, higher consciousness, a truth consciousness to be made a permanent part of earth consciousness. Can it be made? That is the problem. And to that, this age has to give an answer. And the obstacle to it lies in the domination of a materialistic outlook and domination of an economic centered collective life. Economic life now rules the whole of collective values, and it is that which downgrades ethical, spiritual, and higher values of man's consciousness. Well, when that is put in its proper place, there will be perhaps possibility of establishing a collective atmosphere in which growth to that truth consciousness will become more easy for people. Here I give you myself the instance of how people who have a spiritual hunger and aspiration, because of the prevailing values, they are not even able to make an effort. The responsibility is in the collective atmosphere, the values which they have created. And that is what I put to the people in England, you see, to this Kenneth Walker and these intellectuals, that what culture you have created. You created a stupid kind of culture in which a man cannot fulfill himself. He is not free at all. He has to labor from morning to night only to eat, to dress, and to have a house. And you say it is marvelous and wonderful, and what wonderful thing? There's nothing marvelous about it. It's the most tragic situation you have created in which you are grinding the individual simply all the time to keep up your collective prosperity or economy or political, or you grind the individual or ground and it's thrown out at 50, 60 and afterwards they are lost. I mean, what rich human individual is being wasted is the most tragic outlook of the present culture. The waste of human material. And you are counting in terms of, production and wealth and money and so on, which man produces, and you are reducing man. You are, putting man under the machine. I mean, you are grinding. This is wrong. And this must be set right. Not that economic progress is bad or science is bad. Science by itself is neither good nor bad. But why do you want to put economic values at the top? That is the provide. That is what you have to set right, as man has to set right. What has science to do with this value which man creates? Science has nothing to do.
Well, that's because we're worshiping mammon, isn't it? What they
It
call
is.
Bible
It is.
mammon.
It is a creation of man, and now man is subjecting himself to his own creation. he creates value of money, and then he submits himself to that money. There is no more tragic view of man than that. I know. You want to see man with a freedom to devote himself to his fulfillment. A time when he has leisure to devote as to what he is, why he is, what he should do. Here you are made to feel you must contribute. You must contribute to what? Prosperity. Whose? You don't know whose.
For the whole world, Purani, don't you think? I mean, we have to contribute to the whole world. We got to pay more taxes so we can help feed the whole world. Isn't this really any part of it?
Well, does it help? That's the problem one. And is it the way to help also? Second, it is good.
We don't have a choice. We're made to do this.
Yeah, that's it. That is what I object to. If you do it willingly, that is the best thing you can do. To give your wealth to the world. That is what Gandhi did. He, put everything away and serve the world. That's quite right. But when you are compelled to do it, that is another point. And when the nation or the collective, organization does it, even when it does it ignorantly, there is a good point. That is why I support the help that is being given by countries like America to underdeveloped and defeated nations, because that shows the undercurrent of sympathy. Whatever selfishness or interest there may be at work in political field, apart from all outer consideration, there is certainly an undercurrent of sympathy, and which brings human unity nearer. That is why I like and always support the help given by prosperous nations to underdeveloped or defeated nations, because that shows that humanity is one. Somehow or other, that undercurrent is feeling that we are all one, and what happens to one part must concern some other part. So that is the great basis, and that is the great truth that is working. But economic way of helping is one. Putting economy as the highest value of collective life is quite another. You can have economic prosperity, but you need not have economy as the highest value of collective life. Then the ideal man in your collectivity or our collectivity will be somebody like Thoreau or President Lincoln, or yes, that's it. That will be the man whom you say, yes, that's the type. That's what every American should be like, not Rockefeller and not merely people who have accumulated money. Who is the best man? Then you say that is our representative man. Well,
We elect
okay.
those
Sometimes.
extremely wealthy men. I mean,
Yes, and so that has now become a craze with the collectivity. The whole question, we don't object to a few, 1 dozen or 2 dozen people getting some millions of dollars, what doesn't matter much. But the values in collective life should put them in their proper place. In India, there is this, there are multimillionaires. There are the Ruyas and the Birlas and so on. But they were nowhere before Gandhi. Absolutely. No Indian thought of them as anybody worth anything when put before Sri Aurobindo, Gandhi or Tagore or Ramakrishna. No, he's nobody. He goes and bows down and carries out what he says. If he can. If he doesn't want to pay, he won't go to it.
Ronnie, this is my observation. It's not only the Americans that do this. It's the
whole world. I am not saying for America at all. I am saying that this is a steamroller on the whole world, and that is the greater danger. Greater danger is because in India also this steamroller is trying to work in the same direction.
Yes, that's what I
It is not at all here. I don't say that American is particularly, subject to this economic centric outlook. The whole world today, whole world, even the African nations, I tell you, their one idea is to get, not to
The
become.
reason I say this, see, we was traveling when Kennedy was elected as president. We was traveling around the world. and everybody was fantastically glad that Kennedy was elected.
Mm.
He says, now he will give us something.
Mm.
He will give us something.
Yes.
What are you gonna do with the whole world?
Well, he's not giving out of his own money, he's giving out yours.
That's very, very true. That's very true. But the whole world is electing
Yes, that's
the
true.
wealth.
Yes.
It's not only here in America, the whole world.
They're the only Well, they're the only ones that can do it. I mean, they can't get into politics anymore. They're the only ones that can survive and take the time off.
That's an essence of the Gore during the Second World War, and he said exactly what you've said now.
Yes, he said to that in Japan, and Japanese were very much displeased. Now they produce his articles. Now they reproduce his articles. He had to leave Japan.
They weren't.
He says very unpleasant thing about Japanese culture, that you are imitating West and you are simply going under the wake of German and this aggression and national egoism and aggression, and you will ultimately come to ruin. Oh, the Japanese, oh, what is this man Indian, our progression, our great, we'll shoot and we'll do this and that. All right, he came back. He was very much disappointed. I mean, Japanese didn't like his saying that. And now, after the Second World War, they're reproducing this article and saying, see what the Japanese, what Tagore told, but what did you do with what Tagore told you? You did nothing.
That's in the American country.
Yes, I know.
I told you that Sir Rabindranath Seal in 1912 sounded the note of warning before the First World War. He's the president of the World Peace Congress. I think it was held in, I don't know whether it was Vienna or Brussels, somewhere. Huh?
The Hague.
Hague. I think it was Hague. It was at Hague.
Because I remember reading about that conference.
Yes, I remember distinctly his address. This sentence is from his, and it is from his address which I read in the paper in those days.
The problem is how to get out of it now. Yes.
Well, slowly the light is slowly working through this first a big organization in each nation. First, you see, self-determination has come to be accepted. I mean, nobody now doubts. This is one great point, because 20 years back, nobody thought of self-determination as a automatic doctrine to be adopted in international life. Now you say, no, self-determination is a birthright of the nations. Now, this is one thing that is being accepted now, and that's a great line of progress. Very great line of progress that way. The putting of ethical values in international life and disputes, that's another way. Secondly, the UNO is trying to find out all the social and cultural, conditions all over the world in humanity and trying to equalize them. Wages all over the world, crime, dealing with dangerous drugs. And they are trying to put into being an organization in which humanity will tend to become more one. They are working on the basis as if the problem is affecting the whole of humanity. And that is a good sign. What they do in international politics in their, the two bodies which they brought is another matter. There is a much play of politics there. But in these organizations in which social and cultural movements are concerned, there is a drive towards unity which is very helpful to the progress of man.